good. Yeah, but I didn't realize I mean, I knew you were knowledgeable about football, but I was like, damn, you really.
And that ain't even my main thing. Like, talk about the NBA.
NBA?
The NBA that's my shit right there.
Yeah. I just don't. I don't even know how you gather so much knowledge on sports. I don't know any of this. I know your basic stuff on ESPN.
Because the thing is, like, I listen to people like Jamel Hill, Bomani Jones, Dan Levitar. Like, what they do isn't just the play-by-play, like, oh, this person shot that shot. Is also they also go into the society and the culture of a lot of these things. So you're looking at like, one of my favorite sports moments this year wasn't even a play. It was when Trump was talking about Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors.
So we're gonna get to that. So welcome everybody. Welcome back to Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week we're gonna be talking about students of color in PhD programs. There are 5% of Americans have a PhD. 1.86 of that 5%. Identify as Black or Latino. So we're going to talk about that experience of students of color in PhD programs. There's not many of us out here trying to do that. So make sure to tune in next week. But tonight, we're talking about the intersection of sports and politics. I guess that I should introduce myself. My name is Herson. I am a PhD student here at FIU, working on a degree in education, focusing on race, that type of stuff. And I have the pleasure of this amazing, brilliant young man being on the show tonight. You want to tell the folks who you are?
Zavi. I'm a student here at FIU doing international business and supply chain management. I'm an international student from the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean. Shout out.
I should have worn my shirt tonight. Yeah.
Shout out all the CSA people who tune in and stuff like that. I really appreciate y'all. But
Shout out to CSA. Shout out to CSA. By the way, before I forget, I was asked by one of my frat brothers if we can have a CSA representative come like perform at the school. So I just at his school. He works at like a high school or something.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So we can talk about that. I just kind of want to say that before I forgot. So welcome. Appreciate you being on the show tonight. So we're talking about sports politics. In the first hour, we laid down the foundation for what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Kaepernick, police brutality. Why is Kaepernick? Why did he start protesting? So now in the second half, we want to get into what's happening now. The fact that this is co-opted. So maybe we can start at the rally in Alabama, right? So President Trump was at the rally, ends up calling, saying that people who disrespect the flag or protest, they're sons of bitches and they should be kicked out of the game or the team, whatever.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with the thing is, you didn't have much people who were rallying with Kaepernick in kneeling. You had people who were doing things. So I'm not trying to say that other people weren't doing things. You had Michael Bennett at that time. I think he was with the Seattle Seahawks. He's one who's been very vocal about these issues. We also have, I can't remember his name, but he's on the Philadelphia Eagles. But he approached it a little bit differently. He is trying to bridge the gap between the community and officers. So he would specifically try to host town hall meetings, go on ride-alongs to help police with their interactions with the community. So there are different ways. One thing that I always tell people is that when it comes to fighting activism or being for a cause, everybody has a role. As long as you're not with the oppressor, you could do something. So everybody doesn't have to be in the streets. Some people are allies. Some people specifically do the back end work. Some people provide financial support. Everybody has a role in accomplishing these tasks. Yeah. So you do have other players who are doing things, and the numbers of people who were kneeling at the time with Kaepernick, they were low. You were dealing with single digits, like league wide. After Trump said what he said, a lot of people took offense. The league itself took offense because
purportedly,
no, specifically they did take offense because.
But what did they take offense at?
Yes. So
yeah, let's be very nuanced.
With this, you're dealing with two things that happened when Trump said that. You're dealing with one being the fact that Trump is calling the players sons of bitches, offending both the players and their mothers. So that's on one end. And the second is this notion of the owners not being able to control their players. Almost saying like you need to get your property in line.
So we can draw parallels with slave and plantation politics with this, right? I think Katrina is definitely hitting the nail on the head. She's saying, I attribute the NFL now kneeling to the owners feeling challenged by the president. It was a challenge of power, and the owners felt the need to flex their power in response.
Yeah. So what you heard after those claims is this expression of unity and protecting our game. This
protecting
is
our money.
Yes. This
Right.
is very, very, very different to what Kaepernick was kneeling and speaking about, and guys like Bennett, why they didn't even participate in a lot of the locking arms a lot of the times, because this is getting away from the main point of police brutality, oppression, and inequality. So they're speaking about, you can't say that about the NFL, when Kaepernick was saying, I don't want peace, I want justice. So,
Yeah. Randall's saying, if there was an empathy measure of all our presidents, I'm sure Trump would be on a whole different level. He's the anti-embodiment of empathy. So part of me, I get what Randall's saying. I just don't know if I can fully agree with that. Trump is the most, at least explicit, right? And now we have to add social media to this, right? Because that has been a huge proponent.
it takes out the middleman of controlling the message.
Absolutely, right? Social media has things going viral, all this stuff. So, but we've had other presidents prior to Trump be just as egregious. Bill Clinton is a president that is oftentimes lauded, especially by the black community, right? Especially by the black community. But he's also responsible for 3 strikes rule, right?
Mandatory
Right.
minimums, I think.
Mandatory
passed on to
minimums.
him.
Hillary Clinton was talking about super predators, right? And we can go all the way back. George Washington had slaves, right? Andrew Jackson, the Trail of Tears. There have been numerous presidents. Teddy Roosevelt, he was part of the eugenics movement, right? He helped build eugenics centers at Harvard. There have been multiple presidents that have been egregious, horrific dehumanizers. But Trump is probably the more evolved version, and he's what's going on right now.
Yeah. So
And he's post a black president, the only black president.
which is why.
Which is, now we juxtapose that, and now he looks even worse,
But
right?
the thing is, we don't even juxtapose it. Trump himself, his identity is to be in opposition of everything Obama did.
So in a sense, anti-black, right?
He's anti-black.
Or
Anything that Obama was doing had his name on, Trump is on the opposite spectrum of it.
And not just anti-black, right? Trump is also
Women.
anything who's not cisgendered, heterosexual, upper class white man,
Yeah.
right? That's what Trump is, right?
And that's why, like Ta-Nehisi Coates, he says,
Ta-Nehisi Coates, real quick, is an author. If you don't know, Between the World and Me is probably his most Facebook book.
Amazing.
You like it?
book. Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Nah.
We can talk
With
about it.
The specific
I'm not the
way
biggest fan of
he
books.
used. I understand if his ideology, like if people don't fully agree with it, but my thing with is his control of language and diction throughout that book. Every word.
I'm not taking away from that. I'm just saying he's been compared to James Baldwin, which you can't compare anyone to James Baldwin. His book, we can talk about this on another episode. But back to Trump. Yeah.
So Ta-Nehisi Coates said that because of this nature and because Trump himself embraces this identity, he is in a sense our first white president, because he stands in opposition of everything that our first black president brought. So it's not specifically saying that others weren't bad, is that he is bad, but he also does not care about the repercussions as long as he stands on the opposite side of Obama.
But not just that, though. I think that might be too much of a simplified answer. Donald Trump, see, people don't give a shit about things until it's in their face, right?
Yeah.
Many laws go through, get passed, without people even knowing about them.
Yeah.
Right? It's not until something is in your face that you might start to care about it. Right? And Obama really kind of came out of this age of social media being huge,
Yeah,
right?
he was the first politician to embrace social media.
To embrace that. So now there's only been one other president besides Obama to do that, which is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's made these things so explicit that people have no choice but have some type of reaction, whether positive or negative. Right? So I think that's also, we need to address that nuance, because that's definitely something that's part of the issue. Kayla saying, yes, it seems very paternalistic, white patriarchal like. Oh, absolutely. Carla saying, new pop star, we are taught to love, to hate him. Not sure what that means.
I guess you mean like specifically not even understanding it.
Yeah.
Just, oh, it's Trump. You're either riding with Team MAGA or you're against it without even understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
But just to kind of bring it back to football terms, that Sunday after the rally, you had a lot of people on the teams. You had this whole notion of locking arms.
That was a Saturday night, wasn't it?
His rally, either the
It was
Friday
a weekend or something, right?
Yeah, it was leading into the weekend.
So you're talking about 2 or 3 days later. Like quick turnaround. Yeah.
So a lot of people decided that, we will be doing demonstrations. So you had teams locking arms in unity. You had players who kneeled, players who didn't kneel.
Some who stayed in the locker room.
That is actually very difficult, because that whole situation.
What made it bad is it was the coaches I wish he wouldn't have said anything, honestly.
Not even that. Not to pivot away from what we're talking about that day. You know what? Let's finish up that and then get to that specific instance. But what you did, you had a lot of people coming together trying to show this unity for the NFL, not for the causes of Kaepernick. They came together for the NFL. They basically was like, you can't call us sons of bitches. And the owners, the reason they went down there was like, you, as somebody said, you can't flex your power on me.
Yeah.
You have a government official intimidating and trying to impact private institutions and private citizens.
Yeah.
Which in most other cases, a lot of us would call that an authoritative government, just pushing its ideology into the private lives of individuals. But in this case, we talk about patriotism.
Bizarre. I think what made this also an issue for us, so we talked about why it became an issue for the players and why it became an issue for the owners.
Yeah.
But part of the reason why this became an issue to the American public, right, was because now Trump is being explicitly and overtly racist. We're used to thinking about racism as a population. Same thing with sexism. Same thing with classism. We're used to thinking about it in very individualistic, interpersonal, explicit ways. So now he is a racist, or now he does something egregious, right? So that takes us away, and it distracts us from the institutionalized racism, right? Which Kaepernick was really trying to get at. So I think that's important too. That it didn't become a thing until Trump was very explicit about it. We know Trump thinks these things, but we don't take issue with it. It's not until we became aware of it, right, in our faces.
Because, he has a history with, like, the Central Park 5, some of his comments, though, he's
everything.
Been this But, you had all these players doing these things, and the one team that was different from all the others is the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is one of the few teams that have a black head coach, Mike Tomlin. He spoke with the players, and what that locker room came to a consensus on is either we are all doing one thing or we are all doing the other thing. There is no middle ground. There is no a few will stand, a few will kneel. We are entirely as a team going to kneel, or entirely as a team going to stand. Because they could not get that consensus, the decision was made that the players will stay in the tunnel. Because remember, the operation manual says that players should stand. There's no rule saying that. There's not even a rule saying they should come out. So Tomlin and his assistant coach were the only two people out on the field. Where you have an issue is...
Wasn't there one guy?
Yes.
Okay.
The team was supposed to stay in the tunnel. You have a specific player, I can't remember his name, but he is
a white player.
Yeah. He's a veteran. He actually served on 2 tours. He walked out of the tunnel to stand and hold his hand over his heart for the anthem. And what a lot of people are saying is that it should be different for him because he is actually a soldier. He actually served in the military. He does this thing. Like, this is not just a game for him. He actually fought on the flag. The problem with that is he could have stood in that tunnel and did that. They had guys who were kneeling who knelt in the tunnel. So the issue isn't that this guy stood for the national anthem. The issue is that everybody was supposed to keep their opinion in the tunnel. Why was he able and allowed to walk out? That is going to create the divisiveness in that team.
Randall's saying that the player, he came out and said he didn't mean to walk out. He didn't realize he was out there. I don't even know how to respond to that. I'm just like, how do you not realize you're out there? But one thing too that's interesting is that if we believe that our troops fight, right, for the justice and freedoms of Americans, then something's not adding up, right? Katrina's saying no, apparently he couldn't. Protocol says you have to stand before the flag, military protocol.
Yeah, he could stand before the flag, but the thing is,
he could have stood
in the tunnel because that's the issue. As a consent, the thing that you're looking at is the team made a decision to stay in the tunnel. Yeah. They couldn't come to a consensus as to whether they are standing or kneeling, so they all were supposed to stand in the tunnel. So
I just don't understand how you get out there and say, and Randall's saying that there was an interview done. How do you not realize that you walked outside? Like, was he sleepwalking? Like, how does that happen? Like, that's what I'm not getting. Katrina Station has argument with the classmate, Lord. Carla saying going out during the anthem, only 9 years old in football history. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is something's not adding up. I need to watch the interview because I'm not getting this.
Yeah, I'll check it out, but
you haven't seen it either.
No.
No. Okay.
Because my thing is it still comes down to if he's out there, what he's going to notice. Yeah. Because everybody else is in the tunnel. If you notice the light hitting you,
have to walk from the tunnel to outside. Like,
yeah. So
this is weird. Definitely gotta check this out.
Yeah. But the issue is that actually would create divisiveness in the team, which it did when you had an interview with guys like James Harrison. He was like, I thought that as a team we were doing this.
Yeah.
So I haven't really followed up on that situation. Yeah. But that kind of undermines what the coach is saying because we made a decision together.
Yeah.
But that's just the Steelers and.
But the coach also said that it's not that we're for or against, right? He kind of said this thing that we don't want to disrespect people. He said something like that. I saw it a while
back. What the coach was basically, his thing was like, he doesn't want to disrupt anything, but this might not have been the best time for them to express their opinions because they weren't on one page. If he's waiting for everybody to agree, he's waiting on the wrong thing. Because in the nature of it is something that's going to rub people the wrong way. Absolutely. Because a lot of people, as easy as it is to don't kill us, somehow that's difficult for everybody to get behind.
Now, one thing that I was thinking about, but so as soon as so wait, let's talk about the Cowboys real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we had a lot of players who kneeled. The Cowboys were really extra about it, right? Where you have, and to be fair too, many of these white coaches or white owners from these teams gave billions of dollars, right, to the Trump campaign, right? So that's something for us to know too, and that has been a big issue. But now you have Jerry Jones, right?
Yeah,
Jerry
Jones.
Who was saying they need to stand, right? He's friends with Donald Trump. Gave billions of dollars to his campaign. Now you have him kneeling at the game right after, right?
So this is the thing that you need to understand with the context of this Jerry Jones situation is that as much as the NFL has a commissioner, Jerry Jones is the most powerful person in the NFL. you have a commissioner that might stand for certain things. Jerry Jones has been on the record saying things like, the commissioner could say what he wants. He's an employee of the owners. Because people have this notion that the commissioner works for the players. The commissioner actually is hired by the owners. So, what you're looking at with Jerry Jones is the guy who's the most powerful person in the NFL, who is the owner of the team, the Dallas Cowboys, which is considered America's team, and who is friends with Donald Trump, who contributed millions to his process of being elected. He is getting this blame. One, he's an owner, so it's as if Donald Trump is saying you need to get your property and stuff the same way. Also, this kind of negative light, because you have people who are protesting the NFL on both sides. Ones who don't want the disrespect to the flag, not watching, and those who aren't watching until Kaepernick is back in and the NFL addresses things like equality and police brutality. So people on both sides of the spectrum are not watching games. So that kind of is affecting the bottom line of the NFL. Jerry Jones goes down on the field, and before the national anthem, everybody knelt.
It was like a ceremony.
This was a game in Arizona. Coming in with a bit more sports context, that is for the Dallas Cowboys, their backyard. That before there was a team called the Arizona Cardinals that was actually like big. That was just basically Cowboy Stadium 2. That was like a second home game for
Extreme racist state, by the way. Especially when it comes to immigration. I just want to throw that out there.
So while Jerry Jones and his players knelt, the crowds booed, called them names, and then when the anthem started, everybody got up, locking arms. People, that is the moment that you understood that this whole thing is not about the actual protest. It's not about kneeling. It is about the players. Because this isn't about the anthem if you kneel before the anthem anymore. What you had now is people, the fans, generally looking at these people and saying, oh yeah, I don't like these people. I don't like the players. I don't like this league that has 75 to 80% of the players being minorities. That's what happens. Because what people don't like to address is...
That's a great point, Zavi.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
If you keep saying that this protest was about the flag and disrespecting America and everything about it, when you kneel without the anthem and you still are against that and the message that it's trying to send, it means that it's no longer about the message, it's about the messengers. So even with Jerry Jones being down there, they still were going. It means we don't care about this notion of equality. We don't want it. And as I said, all of this happens before the game. The games still happen on time. So after that, it was clear as day. They don't care.
So well, you're making this point, I think, is a beautiful point. Very nuanced. I love criticality. Y'all, shout out to Smart Friends. But I think that's such a great point to address, though, right? But what the first thing that came to mind, at least for me, when I saw this, was I wonder what they're gonna do next Sunday. Right? That's what I was thinking about.
First person who asked that was Bomani Jones on Twitter. He was like, all these people kneeling, but the problem is Kaepernick was doing this every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
What's gonna happen next week?
But not just that. One thing that was also interesting on Democracy Now! I don't know if anyone watches that. There was this one man who was excited that people were kneeling, and he was saying that football players have a code. There's a brotherhood. So when one of them goes down, they all go down. And he just kept on saying this type. I'm like, that's bullshit. That might be true, maybe. But when we look at Kaepernick, we see that it's not true.
Yes.
Right. So. Yeah, go ahead.
With that specific, we could run through some of the comments quick, just to make sure.
Yeah, let's see here. Kevin is saying, to me, it saw a warped sense of idolatry wrapped in patriotism as a Christian, which the word speaks out against concerning the Pledge of Allegiance and the flag. Just my 2 cents. So, let's see. Pockets full of sunshine. Is it true that Trump tried to buy into the NFL in the past, but it did not work in his favor?
I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. You have a lot of like minority owners, as in like they own small percentages of teams. But you find that more in the NBA as opposed to the NFL.
That's all we got. Yeah.
But
So were they gonna kneel the following Sunday? And did the owners and the other players who knelt, was it really about police brutality or not?
that Sunday, it was not about that. That Sunday was basically in protection of the game of football. Because people were offended, they got called sons of bitches, and people were told that they can't get the players in line. The next Sunday, you had the well, that's more recent, but let's get into the week between there. A lot of people talk about Kaepernick, and as you said, this identity of brotherhood in the NFL, and there is a brotherhood because you spend time with these people and stuff like that.
Sure.
But when one goes down, we all go down, and we have to fight is a failed statement because the NFL Players Association has not stood up for Kaepernick or with Kaepernick. This is both a political issue in that Kaepernick's message was explicitly made of where he stands and why he's doing this thing, but this is also a labor issue of you have a player who is of a certain level of talent who is currently being discriminated against. The reason you could make that argument of being discriminated against and being blackballed is out of the 30 NFL teams, one has brought him in for a tryout. 29 other teams have not. Now, I'm not saying that every team needs a backup quarterback, but you want to tell me that all these other dudes getting signed to teams, the Jacksonville Jaguars with the only non-white owner, Shana Khan, the head coach basically said that right now we have 2 quarterbacks that are horrible. We still can't bring in Kaepernick. He's willing to bring in Kaepernick, but because of the pressure from upstairs, he can't even entertain the idea of contacting him. Kaepernick's agents say that teams are not even returning calls from them. The Baltimore Ravens had a huge issue when their starting quarterback, Joe Flacco, he had an issue with his back.
Blake Bortles?
Yeah, Blake Bortles. That's the guy in Jacksonville. Trash. But
The Ravens.
the Ravens, their starting quarterback, Joe Flacco, he had an issue with his back. And if anybody who watching, if you have a bad back, that's some life stuff. Like, that affects you for a long time. They didn't have a backup. They sent out Jay Cutler here in Miami. That's a different situation, but they opened town hall meetings in Baltimore to speak about bringing Kaepernick in. They didn't even have a conversation when they had the Freddie Gray situation happening. So they're willing to have a town hall meeting just to entertain the notion of signing him, but they couldn't do anything with the Freddie Gray. You have the New York Giants, who just previously in the same season as Kaepernick's protest had a kicker who was evidently exposed for committing domestic violence and brutality to his girlfriend. They were willing to keep him on a roster instead of just dropping him, and they opened it up to fan mail about Kaepernick. So that's where you get this whole notion of Kaepernick being a distraction, except Kaepernick isn't doing anything. The players who were with him didn't say anything. His head coach said everything was cool. So clearly it's a problem from everybody else. The Miami situation is a little bit different because Kaepernick expressed some views about Fidel Castro, and that is...
That's muddy waters.
That's something that I know, like right here in Miami, I understand why they didn't even bring him in.
Alright, so look, I'm gonna read these comments, but then I want to get into Jamel Hill because we're running out of time. Katrina saying back in the 1980s, Trump became owner of the New Jersey Generals, one of the teams in the upstart USFL, which is trying to become a rival to the NFL. CNN article. Okay. Wow, shows how much domestic violence is a concern.
Oh yeah, Jerry Jones signed he signed a player, Greg Hardy, who had a video out of him performing domestic violence when he threw his girlfriend on a bed with guns and stuff like that. And we had pictures, we had a court case, and he was still signed. And basically right now, the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, he has a running back who has been continuously been brought up in issues of violence towards women and sexual assault and a whole lot of stuff, sexual harassment, and they just
He's still retired, right? He's still
yeah.
Randall saying Cap is a distraction, yet he won the equivalent of player of the year on the 49ers.
Oh yeah. He was basically the ambassador for the team and stuff like that. But to get into
let's get into Jamel Hill.
Jamel Hill.
Yeah.
The Jamel Hill situation, if y'all don't know, say about a week ago, she was on Twitter. Jamel Hill is one of the few black female anchors at ESPN, and what she said was, looking at his resume, the repertoire of things he's done.
Jerry Jones.
Not Jerry Jones yet. Of Trump. The way that he rallies, the way that he speaks to the general population in a way that not even you could say specifically his view, but his view that the white working class population shares the sentiments of racism with him, that he could rile them up against these black people, which means that he thinks low of white working class, that they jump at the point of black people and racism to fight on these kind of notions. That she said basically using these tactics, he's a white supremacist. He has enabled and manipulated these ideas. He is so slow to call out racism.
He's a demagogue.
Yeah. And basically the embodiment of what white supremacy would be. And she was reprimanded by ESPN.
No, she put this on Twitter.
Yeah, this was on Twitter.
So on her personal Twitter account.
It is her personal Twitter account, but when you work in these kind of areas of public figures, you do give away a bit of freedom of speech. So the issue isn't that she said something about Trump, is that she said he is a white nationalist, white supremacist person, which could be perceived as ESPN agrees with her. Yeah. So it still doesn't come down to where she stands. Is ESPN being painted in this light?
And they were saying that it's part of her contract, right?
Yeah.
They tied to her,
she has a social media contract in this position.
What's interesting about that too is though that there are many other ESPN anchors who are men who say some pretty crazy shit, right? Which I often agree with regarding race.
We have Mike Ditka who said that in the last 100 years he doesn't see oppression.
And so I saw that earlier, and I'm like, well, maybe to him, he hasn't.
You mean to tell me he hasn't seen Martin Luther King? He hasn't seen Jim. Like, he is alive to witness these things.
Zavi, I don't know what these people
say.
But
hey, that's the privilege that's afforded to some.
That's part of it. So, but the point is that there are men on ESPN anchors who are saying things.
The person who sings in front. Sorry to be cutting you off.
No, you're good.
But for Monday Night Football, there's a theme song. The singer of this is Hank Williams Jr. He is explicitly very Republican. Not saying Republicans are all bad, but he's explicitly Republican. He is tied to this rebel movement of the Confederacy. He sings with the Confederate flag draped all over him. And he was also a supporter of this notion that Obama is not an American. So he has the three strikes of whoa. And you know what happened? ESPN separated themselves from him for a while. And now he's back to singing the theme song for Monday Night Football.
But so Jamel Hill has been suspended for 2 weeks.
Yes. So she has been suspended recently because of more comments. But these, even with the words, people still kind of misconstruing it. Fans were asking her how she feels about the Jerry Jones comments. And she says that if people, they have people who are on the protest on both sides, who aren't watching the games, who aren't doing things. And what she said, basically, if you want to affect change, if you want to, you notice that you can't do it directly to the players, you can't do it directly to Jerry Jones. You speak with your dollars towards the companies that support and the sponsors. So she was saying, if you want to affect change, because people are asking her how, you go to the sponsors and affect them. And because of that, people said that she was inciting a boycott against the NFL. ESPN and the NFL are in bed, which means she is technically boycotting ESPN.
Yeah.
So because of that, she was suspended for 2 weeks.
And we can draw parallels with her and Kaepernick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing too is that she didn't lie. It's not like she fabricated some type of insidious lie. We have the history that shows that Donald Trump is very much a white supremacist, white nationalist, whatever we want to call him. Through his actions, he is anti-humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the messages that are being sent, right? When we are willing to dismiss a woman, a black woman who is an anchor, right, for speaking the truth. And it goes to show you whose humanity are we willing to grant, whose humanity are we willing to take, right? And who do we... It tells you something about politics. It tells you about where we stand on certain issues.
Mm-hmm.
So Kayla's saying, or Carlos saying, makes you question who has freedom of speech. Other Kayla, gotcha. As contract, she represents the company. They value integrity more in that institution more than the presidency. And all about the money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So my issue with a lot of this that's going on is this notion of, one, the fans who watch these games, they're only listening to one segment of fans. They're only paying attention to the fans who do not watch the game because of anthem protests. What about the fans who do not watch the game because of the mistreatment of Colin Kaepernick and other black players? So they're only paying. It shows that, I think somebody alluded to it, was whose voice matters. The freedom of speech and whose voice matters.
Yeah.
If I say I'm not watching the NFL because you have these issues of CTE, the failure to speak out on equality and stuff like that.
What's CTE?
CTE is a brain condition that has been proven playing football.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the movie Concussion, if y'all want, check it out.
Check it out. Yeah.
But basically, playing football, the nature of the game is smashing together, which can cause these kind of brain damage issues. Numerous players have taken their lives because of CTE. Most recently, the guy from the Patriots, Titan, he was in jail for a murder case. He killed himself. You have Junior Seau. Numerous players are affected by this, and the NFL is doing nothing to do this, to treat that. But yeah, cerebral trauma and stuff like that. But they're only listening to a certain segment of fans. And now you have this issue of the owner saying the players have to stand. And I think the issue with that is it's completely in the rights to ask the players to stand, because that's something you can do as an owner. But then you also need to understand it's also forced nationalism. So if you are making a player stand based on something that isn't a rule, is actually an operation recommendation, then you're forcing patriotism and nationalism on these people, and you are becoming what you fight against. This notion of America fighting for freedom, liberty, and justice for all shows now that the justice isn't really for all.
So let me play devil's advocate here, Zal.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Kittian.
Yeah.
You're not from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we're trying to wrap up the show now.
Yeah.
Why are you? First, like, this is not a Kittian thing. Football, like all this stuff. Maybe it's been globalized more.
Yeah.
How did you get into this? How did you become so knowledgeable about this? Why do you care about this so much? And just kind of tell us a little bit about you in that sense, because I think that's important too. Because I don't know about the ins and outs of any of this stuff. Yeah.
So, me, I'm not from here, but I started watching sports, with friends, just having like simple conversations about sports, and we played basketball and stuff like this. So for me personally, I started as just a fan of sport, but then I also saw how sports is woven into all aspects of society and culture. The way that basketball could be seen as the fifth element of hip hop. So if you like hip hop music, you're thinking about the graffiti, the dance, the DJ, the lyrics, and basketball. Because since its inception, you have guys like Biggie, either you have a wicked jump shot or a singing crack rock. So, is that kind of theory of sports isn't just something to do, which is why I don't believe in the stick to sports narrative. It's something that's part of life, whether you're doing it on a localized level for your own enjoyment or on a global level to represent your country in the Olympics as an institution. But specifically when it comes to this situation with football and racism, it gets me to one, looking at the dynamic of racism in a different context, because I feel like in the Caribbean specifically, a lot of people don't pay attention to racism as overt racism. What we have a lot of issues with is racism being tied in with classism. So you have this issue of, oh no, everybody love each other. You could be black, you could be Hispanic, that person could be of Asian descent and stuff, but at the end of it, we're all Kititian, Jamaican, Grenadian, wherever we're from. But then you have to look at the social construct and the classes that happen. So we are the black people generally put bottom of the tier. We are the fairer skin. Where do you have the white people in the power dynamic of the country, the benefits that they get, the economic influence that they would have. So I try to look at that, and I think the best way to look at these aspects is, one, look at a nation like America, which has been independent for so long. It is a larger country than anything we have in the Caribbean, but also looking at how, with this history of racism being so ingrained in the fabric of a country, to look at that and just put my lens on it and how that has affected every single aspect of its operation. So it even leaks into sports, as we could see. So yeah. I don't just look at sports for the enjoyment of it. I look at sports for the jokes, and I look at sports to have these discussions of society too, because sometimes that's the best way to translate it. Telling somebody that, hey, police brutality is a real thing, like they do see you and already assume that you're something, they don't get that concept. And then you show them, his name is escaping me, he was playing for the Atlanta Hawks. There's a player outside of a club who the police just threw down and stepped on his knee. Can't play again for the NBA playoffs. There's a famous tennis player who was standing outside in New York who a police officer approached and put him on the arrest for credit card scamming, threw him on the ground, said that this was a sting operation, put his knee in his back and stuff like that. And it's like, how did we get here as opposed to other places? So it's just kind of using sports to kind of explain some of these narratives,
yeah,
for everybody. Yeah,
like an analytical tool in a way. Yeah. So closing words. Just to, what would you tell the people, man?
My closing words, just to kind of bundle up everything in a minute. The protests have exposed a lot of people involved. The protests exposed those who hate the players specifically because of their color, not because of their stance. It has exposed the owners who want to protect the integrity of the game and not stand for the plights of their players. It has exposed the NFL, who will not specifically come out and address the issues of police brutality, oppression, and inequality in the nation. It has exposed the fans who are willing to call down on these players who are standing for simple human decency to not be attacked and killed for nothing. It has exposed the administration and government to show that they are willing to target private institutions and private citizens to express these kind of almost fascist ways to speak down on individuals in society. And what it has done is almost spoken to this argument of everybody asking for peace while a few people are asking for justice. And sometimes that is the actual answer when you look back on it, is the persons who are willing to make you feel uncomfortable, to do things to raise that awareness, to make sure that everybody understands. We are looking at a country that was built off of these ideals of freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as we look around now, we have people who are not experiencing those privileges and liberties.
No, I think that's extremely well said. Extremely well said. Randall was saying that Thabo Sefolosha,
yeah,
is a Hawks player. Carlos Sainz gonna be one hell of a Super Bowl. Yeah.
I heard Jay-Z turned down performing at the Super Bowl because of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, did not know that. and one thing too, I think you said a great thing about making people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Kaepernick was able to take something that is, for many people, a getaway, right? A way to kind of not think about politics and turn it into something, or expose, right, the politics around it in a way as well. So I wonder if we would be willing to do this in the workplace, because Colin did this in the workplace. Like we said, this is a labor issue.
Yeah.
Colin did this in the workplace. So I'd be interested to see how many of us would be willing to expose the racisms or the sexisms or the classisms in the workplace as well. And I wonder how we would deal with that. Because the workplace, just like it was for Colin, is also a political space. So we see this, we can see this and analyze this in many ways. But yeah, man, thank you so much coming through. I appreciate you always. Y'all, if y'all know Zavi, follow him on Instagram. Tell the people your handle, man. You
can follow me at Carib Zavi. That's pretty much my social media handle across the board. I don't post as much on anything right now.
You have a podcast too, though.
Yes. The podcast is kind of one of those things that because I'm spread so thin I can't do. But I used to do a sports podcast with one of my friends called Off the Bench. And I also kind of had a personal podcast called The Dregs Talk, which was just a little conversations like this, just bites of conversation and music. But all that, when I get back time, I'll be doing a lot more of that. But yeah, you can follow me. Honestly, my thing is always, if you see me, just say hi. If you want to talk. I'm down for anything.
Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. Great discussion. Thanks for some really good views.
Hey, shout outs to Randall, even though, trash team. Shout outs to the New York Giants fans in there, y'all ain't won since 2016. Shout out to everybody.
So yeah, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week. We're talking about students of color and PhD programs.
Hopefully I'll be one of those students of color with a PhD.
You'll be in there. It's very soon, very soon. So thank you, everyone. Shout out, take care. He said Dallas sucks.
We gonna win the East.
Alright, y'all, take care. Have a good night, and thank you again for tuning in.
Even with a racist owner.
I mean, well, they're all racist owners.